He's second team, and we do the depth chart every day. And again, you guys got to write the story, but I think Bernard would be the first one to tell you he missed 7 or 8 practices with an injury, and Matt's had a great camp, and you know, again, you guys focus on Bernard because rightfully so, but you know, Colin Madison is in a battle at right guard, and so is Derek Dennis, and I can go on down the line. Peanut Joseph's in a battle. A lot of the corners are in battles right now. So there's a multitude of guys that we finally have a competition level where you really can't miss any time. But you know, in terms of when it's not like we're turning our back on Bernard.
No, I wasn't implying that.
Yeah, it's just that.
Just wanted an elaboration on.
Oh, okay. But for us, it's we're human beings, and it evolves every day. And sometimes guys are banged up, and some so. But it just so happens that on that day, we do that depth chart every day. So the day it was released, that's what it's at. Now I'm not gonna.
Take for him to get back to running with the first team.
He's got to run like Bernard and stay healthy, and I would say the same thing to Matt Brown, or any of those guys. But it's nice to have some depth now. But I expect to see both those guys carrying the ball a lot of reps. It not only has Bernard improved since the end of last season, but Matt Brown really improved, and we saw what he could do down the stretch last year, and he's really had a good camp. So he deserves to be in that spot right now. We have 6 practices, and I expect it to be very intense here over the next 6 days to determine some of those spots, and many of those won't be determined until game time. And so the irony of it is that we've named the quarterback early, which you guys are probably laughing at, and now we have all these other spots that are switched around.
Would you say he's 100% or close to it?
I wouldn't say he's 100. I'd say he's close to it. And obviously, the kids had off last night. They have off today, and nobody has to get up early tomorrow because we don't have school, and we're not going to start till the afternoon. So it ends up being close to 40 hours that they're off, and generally that's enough to start the healing process. And we're not in camp mode anymore, so it'll just be 1 practice a day.
Tell you that is, you had played at Penn State. Several of your coaches coached at Penn State or played at Penn State, where obviously it's a winning tradition. How big was that, having been a part of that, coming up under Joe, in sort of like develop or understanding what you needed to do or where you needed to be, having been groomed in a program where they were, where they were winners?
Yeah, well, number one, tremendous leadership and tremendous vision by Coach Paterno. So I think that helped all of us right from the get-go. Everybody understood the culture, and that was when no one was saying the word culture. That was just the way we did business at Penn State. That was the Penn State way. So I think everybody understood that. So not only was there good leadership, and the coaching staff, were kind of the disciples. They would get the word to the student athletes. And I think what happened, and I always remember this from my experience at Penn State, was that the peer pressure was strong. That's when you have a culture, when the peer pressure is strong, when the leadership comes from the bottom up. Everybody thinks it comes from the top down, but in reality, he empowered the players to be leaders, to make good decisions, and it was such a strong culture. But in the end, it would come from the bottom up. It would come from the players, pushing each other, the competition, the decision making, obviously, the overall attitude and approach. So clearly, those are the things that we're trying to instill here. And then I learned a lot along the way, because we went to Boston College with Tom O'Brien, and that was after the gambling scandal, and that was a mess. So we learned how to fix a program there, and then I went with Al Rowe to Virginia when they had just come off a 5-7 team, and so we had to kind of rebuild that. So those two, plus my experience at Penn State, really provided the foundation that I needed to help turn this program around.
You ran the ball really well last year for the first time since you've been here, and it was a mess before that.
Yeah.
It takes a long time to get an offensive line together. How much, Matt and Bernard got a lot of the credit, but your offensive line must have been pretty good, and looks like it's going to be good again this year. Do you see any weak spots on the line that you're worried about, or should it be at least as good as last year and maybe better?
Well, I hope it's better. I mean, we have 10 guys that have started games for us, and then we have some obviously some tight ends that have played a lot of football for us, Matt Bell-Savage and Evan Rodriguez, and we moved Keith over there, who's a really good prospect, and then Vaughn Charlton and Alex Joseph. So we have a good group of Alex Jackson, excuse me. We have a good group of tight ends to go along with that. So there is experience there, and don't forget, our offensive line was our offensive MVP at the end of the season. So when we all sat down and decided who was going to be the offensive MVP at the end of the year, it was the offensive line for all the things that Matt and Bernard did from an individual standpoint, and they were impressive. The offensive line to me was the most impressive because we had seen the other side where we couldn't run the ball, and you guys that covered us all those years, we could not run the ball, and hopefully we'll be able to continue to run the ball and then alleviate some of the pressure off the tailbacks by throwing it better. And obviously that ideology starts with me, and that philosophy starts with me. So hopefully we'll improve on that this year.
John Flumbo was a big part of that last year at center. He stepped in against Nova. When did you know that you were starting to get something special with him, and he was starting to turn the corner at such a very important position for you?
To be honest with you, it was probably he learned a lot in the Villanova game. I go back to that, going into that game a year ago. I mean, we really didn't know. We didn't know a lot about our team going into that game, and John was one of those guys because he wasn't starting in that game, and he didn't play great against Villanova. He knows that, but I think the difference there, John, was that he didn't let his ego get in the way. He admitted the things that he did wrong and really made a commitment to fix them. And I think that's when we learned. You said, when did you find out you could have somebody special there? I think John's bright. John was a really good basketball player in high school, and he was an athlete. And he, when kids are willing to go play center, they're usually unselfish. So on top of that, he was unselfish, and he's tough, he's rugged, he's all that. And but I think when you're willing to admit that you didn't play well, or your ego doesn't get in the way, you can do great things. And I think that's what John did at the end of last year. He really started to play well as the season evolved, and he's got 2 years left, so that's exciting for us.
That model you're talking about at Penn State, how far along are you with that here in your mind? And is it,
Well, again, it's not really a model as much as it is, just how do you establish that culture? And I think now, the competition more than anything has helped us. The competition right now, compared to a year ago, you can't even compare. Now, obviously, it doesn't mean much if it doesn't result in a better program and a better team, but there was a lot of positions going into last year in the opener where we really didn't know. We were counting on some guys that didn't play, or we really didn't know what we could do. So competition has a big part in that, because it's no different than the draft. I mean, if you have two guys that are equal, the guy who plays special teams is the guy who's going to is going to make the team. If you have two guys that are equal, it's usually the guy who plays smarter and more disciplined that's going to make it. And if you have two guys that are equal, it's usually the guy who makes better decisions in the community that's going to play. And obviously, if you have multiple guys, then that competition to do all those things aforementioned is stronger. So hopefully, we're starting to have that.
But changing quarterbacks, I don't know how often, Joe, moving a quarterback to a tight end kind of thing, that's not something he would do. The thinking behind
that's
that.
That's not something who
Joe would move a quarterback to tight end?
Coach Paterno wouldn't do that?
I don't know. Maybe a linebacker, but...
Well, for us, to be honest with you, that's kind of the way we grew up at Penn State. It was, Gary Brown was a safety, then an all-pro running back, and Todd Berger was a, defensive lineman, then an NFL guard. And, I mean, I can go on and on, go all the way back to Rich Malott and those guys who he played 1 year at linebacker and then played with the Redskins for a long time. So it's always been about the team. And right now, I think our guys are starting to understand that. They really didn't have the concept until the last half year that it is about the team. And I think the fact that players are willing to make moves that are the best for the team, and then ultimately, why does a player make a move? Because they trust the coach, and it takes a long time to get to that point.
Backing up just a little bit, back to Joe. It's being speculated again that this could be his last season. Like, people have been speculating that for some time. But even if he won't say that, I mean, it can't be too much longer. Given the pressures on coaches today, can you envision, let's say yourself, doing this for 40 years?
Nope.
Or anybody doing it 40 years at one place?
No. It's just, if you got a guy like Urban Meyer, who's had nothing but incredible success since he's got to Florida, and he's almost got to give it up, that should give you an indication of where we're going. It's 24/7 media. That's, and I don't mean this in a derogatory sense, but that's the world that we live in. He has no life outside of his home in that area of the state or in that area of the country. Everybody's a reporter, so even if he goes and has a beer and he's talking to somebody, someone's going to go home that night and put it on the internet. So it's tough, and I got to be honest with you, that's what's great about working in a city. There's a lot of other things, and my family and I have a life, and we enjoy it, and we love going to the beach and doing all those things. So we enjoy it, but to stay in one place for 40 years, I don't see it. I don't see it happening much anymore. It's just too that it comes with the territory. I mean, coaches are getting paid more now, so the demands are higher. The demands are higher, and the expectations for a lot of people are completely unrealistic. Because every alum thinks that their place is the greatest place ever, and they should. They should feel like that. And if there's a couple bad years or down years, so much of our game is, we can go out and lose 3 or 4 players in the opener, and if they're the wrong players, we're in trouble. And that's, the alumni don't want to hear about that. That's just the way it goes. So it's going to be hard for anybody to do that anymore.
Speaking of the opener, what do you think about Villanova as a national championship?
What do we think about them? Well, we got, they beat us last year. They have their whole team back. They're experienced. They have, guys on national award list. They have a quarterback that makes it go. Their whole backfield's back. The left tackle's as good as anybody. On defense, they really run. They make it hard for you to run the ball, and they don't give up big plays. And they're really good on special teams. And Matt Caesar is as good as any athlete that we'll see all year. So it's, what else can I say? It's going to be a lot of fun, And I just hope our kids enjoy the battle this year, and really enjoy the environment. Because you guys that were there last year, the environment was really good, and it was exciting. And hopefully we'll play better this year, and we'll be a little bit more prepared.
With James Nixon, how smooth has that transition to corner been, and how well has he managed, working at defense and offense and special teams? Yeah,
I had to look because, again, I don't want to say the wrong thing. So I said, I think James is starting. So it's been pretty smooth. And James is in there's a lot of competition there. So I don't know who's going to end up at top. When we released this, he was in front of Liverpool. But James is talented. He's got very good flexibility, excellent hips, a lot of mobility. He's longer than most corners, so he can really jam. And he's got loose hips and obviously the high-end speed. So I don't think he's gotten beat deep once all camp, just because of his long speed. He's got excellent makeup speed. So all those things are good. He plays special teams on us. He was our special teams MVP a year ago. And he's just not a kick returner. He goes down and covers kicks and does those things for us. So I'm excited about him. And Maurice Jones and Kier and Poole and Kwame and Zamel. There's a lot of competition there. I'm excited about. But yeah, I think we have to. I think we have to continue to get. He's the fastest player on the team, and I think we have to continue to find ways to get him the ball. And even if it's just certain plays or certain jobs each week, we're going to continue to do that.